It was a quiet morning on my ranch, the kind of morning where the air feels fresh, the birds sing, and the sound of my animals moving around the pasture makes me smile. This land was my peace, my pride, my safe place. I had worked years to buy it, to make it mine, and I never thought anyone could take that away from me. But I was wrong. It started with a letter from the Homeowners Association. They claimed I had broken some rule about the color of my barn and the height of my fence, I thought. It was a small misunderstanding, so I ignored it. After all, I was not harming anyone. The barn had been the same color for years, and my fence was only there to protect my animals. But the HOA did not let it go. A few days later another letter came, more aggressive this time, warning of serious consequences if I didn't comply. I still thought it was just empty threats, but then my neighbors began warning me in hushed voices that the HOA had a history of getting what they wanted in ways that weren't exactly legal. I laughed it off at first, thinking it was just gossip, until I started noticing strange cars parked down the road at odd hours, sometimes in the early morning, sometimes late at night, always with the engine running. One night I went out with a flashlight and the car sped away the moment the beam hit it. That's when the unease started to grow in my gut. I knew something wasn't right. A week later it happened. I was in the barn fixing a latch when I heard tires on gravel. I stepped out to see a black SUV pull up. 3 men got out, wearing uniforms that at first glance looked like police gear. But there was something off. Their badges looked cheap, their boots mismatched, and their body language was stiff, not like trained officers. The one in front stepped forward and said they were here for a safety inspection and needed to search the property. I asked for a warrant. He just smirked and said they didn't need one. I told them they weren't coming in. Without proper paperwork, his smile disappeared and his tone turned sharp. "Sir, we can do this the easy way or the hard way." My instincts kicked in, years of Green Beret training whispering in my mind that these men were not law enforcement. Real cops don't talk like that. Real cops don't look nervous when you ask for ID. I took a step closer, studying their faces. Their eyes flickered between each other like they were waiting for someone else to make a move. The leader told one of the others to check the back gate. I raised my voice and told them they were trespassing and needed to leave immediately. That's when the second man's hand slid toward the holster on his hip. My blood ran cold, but my mind stayed sharp. I could hear my own breathing, steady and slow. I moved my hand to my side. "Ready?" My voice low and calm. "You've got 10 seconds to tell me who sent you." The man froze, the leader's eyes narrowed. The sound of the wind and the animals in the background made the moment feel even more tense. No one moved, no one spoke, and I could feel the standoff stretching tighter with each heartbeat. Then the leader took a small step forward, the gravel crunching under his boot, and said something I couldn't quite hear over the pounding in my ears. But I knew one thing for sure. These men weren't cops, and they weren't here for a safety inspection. They were here for something far worse. I squared my shoulders, ready for whatever was about to happen next, because I knew in my gut this wasn't just about a barn or a fence. This was a battle for my land, my home, my life, and I wasn't about to lose it without a fight. The leader's eyes locked on mine as the other man's hand hovered near his fake holster. I could feel the tension like a wire pulled tight, ready to snap. Years of training told me to act before they did. So in one smooth motion I stepped forward, grabbed the imposter's wrist, twisted it down, and kicked his legs out from under him. He hit the ground hard, gasping. The other two froze for a split second, shocked that their plan was falling apart. I kept my voice steady, deep. "On the ground now." One of them hesitated, his eyes darting to the SUV. I knew he was thinking about running. I took one step toward him and he bolted, sprinting toward the driver's side. I let him go for now because the leader was still standing in front of me, his jaw tight, his fists clenched. I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. He wasn't expecting me to fight back. I reached down and yanked the fake badge from the man on the ground. Cheap plastic with a shiny sticker. Nothing like real law enforcement. I tossed it in the dirt. "You're not cops," I said, my voice low. "And you picked the wrong ranch." The leader tried to bluff. "We're authorized to be here." But I cut him off. Authorized by who? The HOA? His eyes flickered just enough for me to know I'd hit the truth. I pulled my phone and started recording. "Say it again. Who sent you?" He stayed silent, his jaw twitching. In the distance I heard the SUV start. The one who ran was trying to get away. I gave the leader one last chance to talk, then stepped back and called the real police. I told them I had armed trespassers pretending to be law enforcement on my property. I could hear the dispatcher's tone shift as she realized how serious this was. She told me officers were on their way. While we waited, I searched the man on the ground. Inside his pocket I found folded papers, HOA letterhead, and a property seizure notice with my address. My stomach turned. They weren't here to check anything. They were here to take control of my land. I kept the papers as evidence. The real officers arrived within minutes. Their uniforms crisp, their presence calm but alert. The difference between them and the fakes was night and day. They detained the man on the ground and went after the SUV, which they caught less than a mile down the road. When the officers returned, they confirmed my suspicion. These guys aren't cops, they've got priors for fraud and impersonating officers. One of them even had an outstanding warrant in another county. But the most damning thing was what they found in the SUV. An envelope full of HOA documents, my property records, and even photographs of my home taken without my knowledge. The name of the HOA president was written across a contract. My anger burned hotter than the summer sun. I asked the police if I could press charges. They said absolutely, and advised me to get a lawyer for the civil side as well. Later that evening I drove straight to the HOA president's house. I didn't sneak or hide. I wanted him to see me coming. He opened the door trying to act surprised, but I could see the flicker of panic in his eyes. I held up the fake badge and the property seizure notice. "Recognize these?" I asked. He stammered. "I have no idea what you're talking about." I hit play on my phone, the recording of one of his hired men saying, "The HOA wants this done fast," filled the air between us. His face went pale. He tried to slam the door, but I blocked it with my boot. Neighbors started coming out of their houses, curious about the noise. I raised my voice so they could hear. "This man sent fake cops to raid my ranch?" Whispers rippled through the crowd. The real police, who had followed me. Here stepped in, one officer read him his rights while another put him in cuffs. The HOA president shouted about being set up. But no one believed him, the evidence was too strong. As they put him in the squad car, I felt a mix of relief and anger. Relief that my land was safe for now. Anger that someone had tried to take it in the first place. I went back to the ranch that night and stood at the fence, looking out over the fields, the moon casting silver light on the grass. I thought it was over, but just as I turned to go inside, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I answered and a low voice said, "You think this is finished? We're just getting started." The line went dead before I could reply. I stood there in the dark, the sound of the night pressing in around me, and I knew this fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. The night after the HOA president was taken away, I couldn't sleep. The words from that phone call kept replaying in my head. "You think this is finished? We're just getting started." I sat on my porch in the dark, the sound of crickets filling the air, my hand resting on the pistol by my side, my mind going over every possibility. By morning, I decided I couldn't just wait for whatever was coming. I had to move. First, I drove into town and spoke with the officer who handled the arrest. He told me the men who impersonated cops were refusing to talk and that there was no solid proof linking anyone else to the plan, yet I could tell he was holding something back. Finally, after a pause, he said there was one thing: the fake cops' phones had a series of texts from an unknown number giving detailed instructions on how to enter my property where my cameras were, and even when I'd be away from home, the messages were signed with the initials RC. I didn't know anyone by those initials, but the officer's tone told me he thought I should. I went home uneasy, every sound outside making me tense. 2 nights later, my motion sensors went off at 2 a.m. I grabbed my flashlight and rifle and stepped outside. The wind was sharp, carrying the scent of gasoline. That's when I saw it. My barn door was slightly open. Even though I had locked it hours earlier, I moved quietly through the dark, keeping my back to the wall. Inside the barn, I caught the shadow of a man crouched near my feed barrels. He didn't hear me until I was right behind him. I ordered him to stand. "Hands up." He froze, then slowly raised his hands. I could see a red C stitched into the back of his jacket. My pulse quickened. The man turned and grinned a grin that told me he wasn't afraid of me. "The president was just the beginning," he said. "You got in the way of a much bigger plan." I searched him and found a lighter and a small gas can, half empty. He had come to burn my barn down before I could question him. Headlights flashed outside, 2 trucks pulling up fast, more men jumping out. They weren't in uniforms this time, they were in work clothes, but armed with bats and crowbars. I knew I couldn't take them all head on, so I shoved the first man toward the door, distracting the others, and slipped into the shadows behind the stalls. Using the layout of the barn, I moved quietly and positioned myself near the back exit. When the men spread out looking for me, I kicked open the back door and sprinted. To the main house, hitting the remote that turned on every floodlight around the property. The sudden brightness made them freeze for a moment. That's all I needed. I fired a warning shot into the air. The sound echoed through the night, and I shouted that the police were on their way. In truth, I had already hit the emergency button on my phone's security app. The men hesitated, then scattered, running back to their trucks. The one with the red C was the last to leave, locking eyes with me and mouthing the words, "Next time you won't be ready." The real police arrived minutes later, but the trucks were gone. We gave them the jacket with the red C and the gas can as evidence. The officer told me they'd increase patrols in the area, but I knew deep down that whoever RC was, he wouldn't stop until he got what he wanted. For the next week, I reinforced every fence, replaced every lock, and installed more cameras. I even started sleeping in short shifts, ready to react to any noise. One evening, as the sun was setting, I saw a single envelope taped to my front gate. Inside was a photo of me standing on my porch, taken from the trees, and a note with 4 words, "We're already inside." My stomach dropped. My land, my home, my safe place was now a battlefield, and I knew this time there would be no warning, only the fight of my life. But I also knew one thing: they had underestimated me before, and it had cost them dearly. If they came again, I would be ready, and I would end it once and for all.